Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Here's another episode of CSUN Performance Ensemble presents a conversation with. My name is Jefferson Denim, and I'm one of your co-hosts.
And I'm the other co-host, Fernando Martinez. And today, today is exciting because we have, I think, a very special guest for a lot of reasons. But just also because it's somebody that I consider a friend and somebody that I've learned from too. And we decided to creep a little bit and check out your LinkedIn. So our guest is a storyteller, somebody who has acted on stage, on screen, works in performance ethnography, and has published in articles. So welcome, Casey Mills.
Thank you.
Casey Mills, yay! What pronouns?
I forgot.
Go ahead, Casey.
I forgot about LinkedIn. I had to do that as an assignment my last year as an undergrad in North Carolina, Wilmington. And I didn't know what LinkedIn was. Do I have a picture on there? Is it super embarrassing?
It's definitely a younger you.
I'm like a blue shirt like this.
That's it.
Yeah, I hate that picture.
Okay, well, now you know it exists. So everyone get on LinkedIn and look at it before Casey takes it down. Can I just go back to it, though? I know it was just an assignment, and then we're going to get into the whole structure of our conversation today. But you had, you were in theater there, which is very cool. You also wrote so you were a journalist as well as an actor in college. Is that correct?
No. I became an actor on accident at the end. I was studying English literature. I was studying creative nonfiction. I wanted to be an essayist. And then I got into performance studies because of the English lit classroom. I learned about Judith Butler in the literature classroom, then started taking a couple comms courses really late in the game. And just my mentor in performance studies over there, I was like, hey, I'm an English major. I'm a creative writing minor. I'm a journalism minor. I think I'm going to try to get a comms degree in half a year. And so she was just giving me permission codes to take all the higher level classes, but I didn't take any of the basics. And then it got to graduation and she was like, yo, you need the capstone course, which is comms 400. But you also need comms 100. And you've taken everything in between, and then we can give you a degree. And I was like, oh, all right. So I'm a fifth year super senior trying to get all three of my degrees. And I'm in comms 100, learning the basics of public speaking. And I was like, oh. I was a fifth year English student taking intro comm courses.
Now you say that and make a face about it, but I love it because it shows that you're, and don't burst my balloon here. I'm saying you're a lifelong learner and you're not opposed to humbling yourself a little bit to learn something new.
Yeah, definitely. But I just had to work backwards. I was literally in 100 and 400 at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to pause you there, Casey, because that's a teaser for where we're going to get to. So my lovely audience, that's a teaser. So let me just ask you quickly, what pronouns do you prefer? We always like to be respectful in that way.
Oh, I'm a he kind of guy.
A he kind of guy. So as we get started here, Fernando and I are big believers in the idea that our life experiences certainly influence and inform our art. We're fascinated by life journeys. And so our conversation, we've decided we're going to split up our conversation in, since we're kind of theatrical, at least 3 chapters or 3 acts, okay? So we'll call Act 1 from the time you were born to say through middle school, okay? Act 2 will be middle school through college. And then Act 3 will be your performance ensemble experiences. Okay. And then if we have time, we'll do a little epilogue and we'll find out, where is Casey now? What's Casey up to now? Because there's some very cool things that you're doing, my brother, and we'd like to give those a shout out. Okay, so let's start with Act 1, shall we? So when and where were you born?
I was born in 1991 in North Carolina in a small hospital in New Hanover County.
New Hanover County, where?
That's in Wilmington. Weirdly enough, I was born September 24th, 1991, and the very same day, month and year, Dr. Seuss died. So the day came out of the womb, Dr. Seuss died, to the very day.
What does that mean to you? Because that's pretty cool, but what does that mean to you?
I don't know. I did my senior project on Dr. Seuss, on Yertle the Turtle. I really got into Dr. Seuss.
The things you can think.
Yeah. I got a tattoo of a plate of green eggs and ham. So yeah, that's just a fun fact about my birth.
I love that. And that's funny that how you've connected that in a way as a kind of through line, because obviously I'm going to speak for our audience and I'll speak for Fernando too, and he can shout me down if I'm wrong, but I love Dr. Seuss. I think Fernando does too. And just the creativity of it and the fact that you found this, because you're a creative soul, this connection, right, in a cool way to him. I love that. So where did you, okay, there's the tiny hospital you grew up in. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in that same area? And what was it like growing up for you?
Yeah, I grew up, so the major city is Wilmington. That's in New Hanover County. The county over is called Brunswick County. It's even smaller. It's
Wow.
like a one stoplight town kind of situation.
And
like
this is North Carolina, my audience, just want to
this
let
is
you know.
North Carolina. My dad owns a hardware store, like a mom and pop, like knows everybody that comes in. My mom's a school teacher. We grew up in a little house with, on this, like on one, it has like one main street. Like we didn't have a movie theater. It was just like the school, a couple restaurants. Like I remember it being like a big deal when the Burger King came to town. Like I grew up in like Turnip Truck, North Carolina.
Got it.
About like 20 miles away from the big city of Wilmington, which was, to me, was a huge city. Now it's like a small town to me after many years there, but it's like, I grew up in like the sticks.
Yeah, but it kind of feels a little idyllic. I mean, most people would think, wow, that's small town America. What a cool place to grow up. Did you feel that way, or did you feel like, I can't wait to grow up and get out of here?
I don't think I knew any better. I was like, oh, this is how everyone grows up. Everybody like knows everybody walking down the street. I didn't know any better until I started watching skate videos, and there were like tall buildings and skateboard videos. And I was like, oh, I like had no idea that was the thing.
Now, did you have brothers and sisters growing up as well?
Yeah, I have two sisters. I have an older sister who we grew up together, and then my mom got remarried, and so I have a baby sister who's like 16 now.
So you were the youngest, and then someone supplanted you, so then you were replaced.
Yeah, I became the middle child. I became the Peter Brady of sorts, by proxy.
Got it. Now, what's your relationship like with your siblings?
I'm really close with my oldest sister. She grew up as my oldest brother, and then about 5 years ago, she came out as trans. We grew up, we shared, until she went to college, we shared the same bedroom, so we were super, super close growing up. And we're as close as you can be now. She still lives in North Carolina. So yeah, we grew up, sleeping 4 feet from each other. She was like my best friend growing up.
Casey, what's fascinating about that is, and maybe for our audience too, you might be wondering, in a small town that you've described, was it hard for your sister to come out and be accepted?
So she came out much later in life. She was probably 26, 27. So she had already she had a supportive friend group. It's not like she came out in high school. That would have definitely been harder for where she was. The hard part was kind of the mentality of some of my more conservative family who doesn't, it's still the South. It's still like rocking chairs and sweet tea and like old timey ways, like spit and dip into a bottle. So that was a hard conversation that she had to have. But by the time she came out, she was in the big city of Wilmington. So much more progressive than our roots.
Got it. Well, they had a Burger King. So, right. So why not? Okay. Now tell me about your parents. What was your relationship like with each one of them individually?
My dad looks exactly like Steve Martin, the comedian, but he wears overalls and like drives a tractor. He's like a real, like, he came out of that show King of the Hill. He's like a full blown like turnip truck, like chewing on a piece of straw, like y'all type guy. But
Wow.
he's like whip smart. My mom is from a small Pacific island called Guam, which is why I look brown but talk like a redneck. So it's their fault. I have like a light olive brush from her, and I have like a country bumpkin twang from him. I grew up in the hardware store, so he taught me how to use a hammer very young. My mom was a math teacher. I got my temper from her. She's loud. So yeah, we fought. Me and my mom fought a lot when I was growing up because I listened to rap music, and she didn't like that. Were your folks church going folks? It's after the divorce my dad found God. Like, I don't remember growing up religious. I think like we went to church on Sunday because that's what you do to save face in a small town. Like there's nothing else to do but go to church on Sunday, and you only go to church on Sunday so you can eat Sunday lunch after. But my dad got super religious post-divorce, and I think my mom went the other way. She's not like a raging atheist or anything, but my dad now goes to church every Sunday, and I don't know that my mom does.
Now, I'm just curious, how did a woman from Guam and a guy who looks like Steve Martin wearing overalls in North Carolina, how did they meet?
In the Army. My mom, there's an Army base on Guam, and there's a big Army base on North Carolina, and my dad jumped out of airplanes in the Army. That was his job. He was in the jump, I don't know the fancy term for it, but
right.
He has like the jump wings tattooed on him and stuff.
Have you ever gone skydiving?
Never. I went bungee jumping, which I don't think is the same thing, but that's the closest I've ever got to jumping off of a large structure.
My brother-in-law was a parachutist. I don't know what it's called either. He did that for like 2 years in Vietnam. So when I told him I was going to go skydiving, he says, let me tell you something. Only 2 things come out of the sky, bird shit and fools. I said, well, I guess I'm a fool. Anyway, so I did it twice and survived. I've never done bungee cord jumping, which sounds worse to me. That sounds scarier to me. How about
horrible.
You, Fernando? Have you done either?
No, because I have no guts.
You have sense? Is that what you're saying?
I'm a wimp, is what I'm saying.
No, it means that you're not a bird shit or a fool. Okay, so what kind of relation, did you have any relationship with grandparents or extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles?
All my mom's family is still on the island. She's the only one over here. So I grew up with my dad's parents were my grandparents, like my predominant grandparents. So I would see them every Friday night or something. We'd have dinner over there.
Every week, got together. Now, have you been to Guam?
I've been to Guam twice, maybe twice.
Just twice.
Just twice. Okay. It's like a 24-hour flight.
Oh, wow. And so when you met your family there, were you curious, or how did that experience turn out for you?
It was awesome. And it's like when you see movies about island living, it was on some we're hacking coconuts out of trees with machetes, and we're chasing crabs on the beach to roast them on a fire, and we're swimming in freshwater caves made out of marble. It was full blown island life. And it was awesome. And I was a kid. I mean, I was probably 10, running around barefooted. The island's 11 miles long. You can go from one end to the other in a day, the entire country. So yeah, it was great. I loved it.
Wow, man. Does that, because I guess I might be jumping ahead here, but has that experience, or knowing that that's part of your heritage, does that influence any of your writing or any of your art in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I remember, and I guess we're going to get into that later when we talk about performance studies, but I met Tim Miller, and I got to work with Tim Miller, who's one of the most acclaimed performance artists in the game, and he's actually the one that told me to go to CSUN. And he's I told him my Guamanian roots aren't very strong in North Carolina, it's my mom. And he was like, well, when you get out to LA, I promise you'll feel more like an islander because of the people out there. There's like a big Chamorro community out here, and there's just more brown people out here too. So he told me you'll feel more like an islander when you get there, and that's very true.
That's cool. You're right. We're going to get to that. So since you mentioned CSUN, let's just talk about school in general. So where did you go to school? Like elementary school, middle school?
I was a terrible student. I went to a private school from like kindergarten to 5th grade where I had to wear like a button-up collar. The first time I got arrested was out of that school. It was like, have y'all seen October Sky with Jake Gyllenhaal, where they like walk him out of the building? Cops walk him out of the building, and he's just like a little boy because he like set a fire. Like that was me. I brought a knife to school in 4th grade.
Were you like getting people's lunch money? What were you doing?
No, there was a kid, and he was from England, and it's the first British accent I'd ever heard, and I hated him. And I was like, in my little 9-year-old heart, I was like, I'm going to kill this guy. And of course I didn't act on it. I was so shy. Like I would cry when my dad would drop me off because I didn't want to be alone. But then I also brought a knife to school. So I got like wheeled out of school at like 9. And it wasn't pretty. And so I was very, very bad at school. I started going to public school in 6th grade. So 6th to 8th grade, 6th to high school, I was in public school. I'm sorry, I want to pause you here. Yeah,
Casey.
go ahead.
So you were known to be very shy?
Yeah, I was super shy. Yeah.
The students, and I know the teachers. So when you had a knife, were they like, Casey?
Fully. Like the kid went and told. I knew he was going to tell. So I buried the knife on the playground by the swing set. I like buried it with my little paws, and so that they wouldn't find it. But of course they're questioning me. My hands are covered in dirt. They easily find the knife. The cops are called. My mother's called. I like have to write a bunch of apology letters to his family. My mom now thinks I'm a murderer. She blames Eminem.
You said, I'm not a murderer. I just hate English people.
Yeah, I just don't like the way you say water bottle. Like,
or garage.
Yeah, like leave me alone.
How did he say water bottle?
Like water bottle. and
I hate it too.
And I was like, stop. Like
By the way, my wife is English, so
I just didn't understand. I was just like a child, and I was just full of rage at his accent.
But I'm also curious because here, I'm sure your parents and most parents, if anyone's a young parent watching this, we're going to completely terrify you because most people think I'm going to put my kid in a private school and it's going to really be the best thing for them. And they're really going to find nurturing and they're going to find themselves, but in a structured environment. You were just saying you had to wear a school uniform all the time, but that did not happen for you.
No, it didn't. I didn't like it at all.
What was it about it that just rubbed you the wrong way?
Well, I don't think it's like the private schools you see on TV. Like, it was like in North Carolina in like this one stoplight town. So basically the private school was like a converted house that they turned into like classrooms, hired a bunch of teachers, and there was like one room was the 4th graders, one room was the 5th grade, and then you would kind of move about through this house, and it felt like a boarding school. I didn't like collared shirts. I didn't like buttons. And my sibling was smarter. And so I was like, I had to be the troublemaker.
Got it. And so, that's interesting because that's part of, and one of the things we're going to explore too is you finding ultimately your identity, who you really are. But at this point you're exploring. So you said your sister at the time was known as the smart one. So you're thinking, okay, that box has been checked. So I'm going to be the troublemaker. Did you make that kind of decision?
I fully remember making the conscious choice to be like, oh, she's got it covered. She's reading the books. Like there's got to be someone like breaking the windows.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay. So then you got out of there and I'm sure you could have gone on to private school 6th, 7th, and 8th, probably, yes?
Probably so.
Yeah, but your parents said, this is not working out. And did you have any say in the fact that you wanted to go to public school?
No, I don't think so. I just remember being like, I wonder how different it's going to be.
So how different was it? When you first got there, now you're used to dress, now you can dress any way you want,
I
right?
can dress any way I want. I'm in 6th grade now.
Yes.
So I have the freedom to choose. I'm still listening to Eminem. So I'm wearing baggy clothes and big khakis, and I think I'm hard. So I loved it. It was like rowdy. It was like what I wanted.
And how many, so it wasn't 2 rooms in a house, obviously.
No, it was
a
like
school.
Yeah, it was a proper school finally, and big buildings, big hallways, like the schools I was watching on TV, and I was like, okay, yeah.
I can hang here. Now, what kind of, so you probably didn't take any friends from the private school into the public school, did you?
No.
So you kind of had an opportunity to reinvent yourself in a way.
I did, yeah.
Wow. So what kind of friendships did you make early on in middle school?
I started skateboarding in 7th and 8th grade. So that's the friend group you gravitate toward, you pick, it's like the scene in Mean Girls, everyone knows you pick your clique. And I picked like the weird kids with the long hair and started growing out my hair, and I bought a skateboard, and that's like the path I took.
Were you still a bad student?
Yeah, I didn't read my first book until 11th grade.
Holy mackerel. And it was Green Eggs and Ham, right?
No, it was Catcher in the Rye.
Oh, wow. If you're going to start with one, that's a pretty powerful one to start with. Well, let's finish up middle school. And most people, let me speak for myself. And Fernando, you can speak for your experience too. I hated middle school. Now, so I'm going to ask you what you think, because it can be a really tough environment. And anyway, did you have that kind of experience, or did you love or hate middle school?
I think I loved it. I remember having fun. I remember you couldn't have a skateboard on campus. So we would carry them in under our shirts and have to just go from the door to your locker. Because if you can get it in your locker, you're free. Because when you're leaving at the end of the day, they can't be like, hey, your skateboard. I'm like, I'm leaving. And then you skate away. You just have to get it at 7:55 in the morning from the door into your classroom. That was like the only immediate goal I had every day. It wasn't.
Well, you had goals. That's good. It's good to have goals.
Totally. Another weird.
I'm sorry to stop you.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Fernando, I want you to imagine him with a skateboard up his shirt, thinking, no one will ever see this.
How does that?
No one will ever see this. I'm going to get to my locker. Were you ever busted?
Often.
Okay. So you were going to please continue.
Oh, and I would do this thing. I would refuse to do my homework at night. So I had this trick where I would take so stupid. I would take a tissue paper and I would make it really, really small, and I would stick it up my nose until I started sneezing uncontrollably. So the teacher would then excuse me to figure out the sneezing fit, and then I would go do my homework against the bathroom wall with a pencil. And so by the time I came back in, the homework was done. And I literally did it every day. I don't know how she didn't catch on. The handwriting was all crazy because the wall was marbled. So every day I had homework done against a urinal, literally.
That is, with a little bit of urine stain on it.
Fully.
That's crazy. And what I love about that too is that you had a sneezing fit every day at 1:30 or whatever it was.
Single.
That kid's got a real problem. Yeah, I'm allergic to homework.
Totally.
All right. So you made it through middle school. Do you have any particular memories of middle school that kind of stand out to you? That homework one was pretty good, so that can probably suffice.
Oh, I would do this thing. I don't know. I know me and you are older. I know Fernando's young. Do you remember floppy disks?
Of course.
I used floppy disks. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. So I would do this thing, and now I look back on it and it's like property damage. But when I knew I didn't do my homework, I would, the metal tab on the thing, I would bend it up a little bit and then stick it in the computer, and then I'd be like, hey, it's not working, my it's on here. And then the teacher would come try to eject the thing, and then she would pull out, I remember her name was Miss Gore, bless her heart, pulled out the floppy disk, the metal piece.
Miss Gore?
Miss Gore.
Oh, Miss Gore. So if you're watching, now you know what happened.
The metal piece is now stuck inside, so my homework surely destroyed. So sorry, I'll bring it tomorrow on a different floppy disk. I did that also often.
I don't know. I think that's pretty clever. I think the fact that you were learning on top of what you were supposed to be learning shows that you're an intelligent person. I'm just saying.
I'm not sure how many computers they had to open up and like remove the tab and close back up in that computer lab, but
and they would always go, Mills!
At least 7.
That's quite creative of you, I gotta say. All right, so let's segue out of that into Act 2. So in high school, so now you're out of middle school and you're gonna, again, go to a public school, right? High school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were you then with your crew, so when you came out of elementary school to middle school, that crew was left behind and you created a new group of friends. Was that same group of friends following you into high school as well?
Yeah, I had the same kind of core group of friends.
And were you still into skateboarding as well in high school?
Yeah, we just got worse at school and better at skateboarding.
Now, in high school, did you ever try, because I know, I'm not giving away the ending too much because we know that you're an actor and a writer and a performance ensemble guy. Did you try any of those things out in high school, like theater or readers theater, anything like that?
No, I thought it was so lame. Like, it was fully like High School Musical where Zac Efron's like cool, but he like secretly likes theater. I thought like I romanticize it like that, but it's definitely not like that. I was definitely like, I hate these theater kids. You're all losers. Like,
really?
Get away from me. My sister did theater, so I would have to go to all her shows. And I remember seeing like a bad production of Footloose and a bad production of The Crucible in like, a school where theater has no funding. I'm still in like bum North Carolina and just hating it. Like I thought they were all lame. I fully got into acting by accident.
Okay, so now it's interesting you were saying, because your sister, like you had said earlier, when she was smart, you thought, okay, well, that box is checked, I'm going to do my own thing. So here's your sister doing theater. And you said, well, forget that, she's already got, but it didn't turn out that way. So you said you accidentally got into it. In high school, you got into theater?
No, my last year of college, I got into acting.
All right, so we'll get to that. So let's just finish out high school. So how would you say, well, let me ask it this way. Did you feel like your identity was a little more solidified in high school? Do you think that's where it kind of came to being, or were you still being formed?
Probably. There's a skateboarder named Bam Margera who was my hero. And so my identity was essentially just doing what he did. I would just watch him on television and then act like him. So I had a solid base, and then I just went from there. I just literally copied how he talked.
So, because the way he was, and you were into skateboarding, this guy resonates with me. This is the life I wanted. Did you think you would be a professional skateboarder?
No, I was chubby all my life. I used to carry around about 100 more pounds than I do right now. So I was never the best skater. I was just like so determined. So I was like the bad one in the group. Like I have friends that have gone off to be pro. Shout out Gary. And, but yeah, I was like the chubby kid with the skateboard. I was like, and so I knew I would have no professional aspirations.
And so you said you had an extra 100 pounds. Was that part of your identity? Did you just think, I'm just the chubby guy? That's who I am?
Fully. I was just like a fat kid all my life. It's all I knew. It's all I still like carry myself in a way where I think I'm chubby.
Now, what did you think about that? Did you think that people looked down on you because of that in any way?
Yeah, I really hated it. It was like a deep insecurity I had all my life. So I would overcompensate by being like the loud kid or being the troublemaker or being the clown, because I wanted everyone to like me, because if they liked me, then they wouldn't make fun of me for being fat. So I had to have a huge personality. And now I don't. Now I'm like the quiet guy in the corner, and everyone is like, he thinks he's too cool, or he just like has his face in his book. But it's like, this is how it would have been all my life. I just had to be loud and boisterous so that everyone would think that everyone wouldn't talk about how chubby I was. They'd be like, oh, he's fun.
And that's how you think, would everyone in high school, that's how they thought of you, as like the boisterous?
I was I was voted like class clown and stuff, all that.
Were you?
In the yearbook, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Now, high school typically is when people first find love and romance. Did that happen to you?
I had one high school girlfriend, and then she married my best friend of 15 years.
Ooh, that's brutal. Okay.
Like, I mean, I got his name tattooed on me. Like, we've since reconciled. I was at their wedding, but yeah, my first high school girlfriend married a kid that the only friend that I carried from birth to private school to middle school to high school.
So this was your homie. This was your guy.
I mean, sink baths together, like best, like when you like best friends, like Spanky Alfalfa, and he married.
And yet he was a snake.
Yeah, fully.
Oh,
fully.
Oh my God! Did he steal her from you?
I mean, mid dating her, he swooped in.
I was just thinking that might be a time to pull out the knife. Hey, dude, I remember I buried that knife all of a sudden. Okay, so, wow, man. I'm sorry to hear that, but we've all had heartbreak. By the way, audience, and this is what we've found, Casey, is that when we share our stories, as you're sharing just so wonderfully, it just makes us all feel this camaraderie. As human beings, there's so much that we, can relate to because we all go through this shit. But for storytellers, which you are, I'm sure you utilize that to connect us, right? You find those common elements, and then and that's why we resonate with good art, because it's like, oh my God, he's talking about my private thoughts that I haven't told anybody about or whatever. Did you feel? Now you said your first book, real book, was Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
When you read that book, maybe you didn't think about it at the time, but looking back, was that like a revelation to you? Like, wow, writing or reading something like this can be powerful. Did it have any effect on you?
It had like a revolutionary effect on me, but it was more about like the character. It's like the classic, angry boy listens to Holden Caulfield. Like, it's like a tale as old as time. Like, I was right. He hates everyone. He thinks everyone's a phony. He wants to wander around the city and be lost and like just think about how shitty the world is. That is literally like I didn't think about the craft of writing. I didn't think about literature. I thought like, oh, this guy gets me. And I was like, this book was written for me. But I mean, angsty teenagers have been reading that book forever. And I fell prey to it. Just like, so then I had to read The Stranger, and then I had to read anything that was about like a wandering lost soul. So it shaped me in that way, in the character way, rather than the writing way.
But when you look back on it now, obviously, like you said, there's so much that has been written, and it finds an audience. And that's another thing too. As a storyteller, again, I don't want to give away too much of your craft. We're going to get to this in a bigger way, but looking back on it now, and as a storyteller yourself, do you appreciate like the ways that that book was written and it got you involved?
I do, yeah. I've always sought out books that feel like since it's so popular in our culture, it's now a buzzword. So now when books come out, they say like The Catcher in the Rye for this generation. Catcher in the Rye. I think the back of Less Than Zero, which is one of my favorite books, says
great movie too. I thought. Did you like the movie or not?
I love the film. I thought it's when Robert Downey Jr. was still special.
When he wasn't Dr. Dolittle, you mean?
Yeah, before pre Iron Man. But the back of that book says Catcher in the Rye for the MTV generation. So for a while, that's how I would buy my books. If it dropped Catcher in the Rye, I would be like, oh, this is and so that now they all feel like the same book. You can read Catcher in the Rye, you can read Rule of the Bone, you can read The Fuck Up by Arthur Narcissian, and it all feels like Holden just is like an infinite character. The angry boy, I don't know. It's like my life's journey to be that.
All right, so that's pretty cool that you found that, I think, because it did sound like it at least began you on this journey. So now you're leaving high school. Now you're someone who didn't necessarily care about school. You're a skateboarder. You turn 18, and I know one of the first things you do is get a tattoo.
Exactly.
Okay. But how did you get to college? Because usually, I know growing up in Chicago, nobody went to college in my immediate family. So it wasn't even a thing. And I'm looking at my friends like taking their SATs or whatever. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're going, we're prepping for college. I'm like, okay, how does that work? Anyway, so how did you prep for college?
So Wilmington was the big city, like 20 minutes away from where I came to be. So I would travel there to skateboard. I would have my mom drive me the 30 minutes to drop me off. So I had a friend group there. Also, that's when I started going to like punk rock shows, and they were all in that city. Nothing in my hometown. So when I knew there was a college in Wilmington, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to go there so that I can still skateboard, still go to these shows, and then my parents will be happy. So I applied to one school. I only applied to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, crossed my fingers that I would get in because I wanted to skate.
Now, so there was no pressure from your dad, let's say, to work in the hardware store or anything like that?
No, but I knew if I didn't get into college, I would be swinging a hammer for the rest of my life.
And you thought, I got to do something else.
I think so. If I can tell like an anecdote that's like very meaningful to me, because yes, you just bring it up. My sister went to like the big prestigious school in North Carolina. She went to Chapel Hill. And I'm going to like this beach school, like UNC Wilmington's good or whatever, but it's like the beach school, right? You go there to skate and surf. And my dad dropped me off in my dorm, and he was like, hey, this is where I need you to learn how to make money with a pencil. He was like, there's nothing wrong with making money with a wrench. But I've done it all my life, and it's a hard life. And he said, it's a noble life, but your life will be easier if you learn to make money with a pencil instead. And so I was like, all right. And so I did.
I think that's really profound. I
Me
mean,
too.
obviously
I got a wrench tattooed on me that says dad because of that literal moment.
Are you close to your dad?
I would say he's like the smartest guy I know. If anything ever happens, I call him. He's like my guide.
He's your guide. Okay. Not your buddy, but a guide.
No, he's a man of few words. He doesn't really say much. I've never heard him raise his voice. I've heard him cuss one time in my 28 years on the planet. I've seen him cry once when the family dog died. Like he's like a stone wall, but he seems to know everything.
Wow. And your mom, what's your relationship like with your mom? What did she think about when you got to college and stuff? Was she happy about that? What did she think?
Well, I fully lied to her. I told her I was going to be a dermatologist because I just told her because I knew that was like a buzzword for making money. I was like, I'll go to medical school. And then like maybe a week later, I was like, I'm changing my mind. I'm going to go to law school. Like I was just throwing things at her to make her feel like I was going to make money. All the while I'm like failing my classes and not going to class and like skipping finals to go to shows. So yeah, but I just kept her at bay with all these career aspirations that I knew were never going to pan out.
So she had big dreams for you.
Literally.
And like you said, your sister was a high achiever academically.
She was.
And so did she make you feel less than?
My sister?
Did she compare you to?
No. The only people that ever compared us, not even my parents, but like in high school, I would get to a teacher and they'd be like, oh, you're the brother. And I'd be like, don't have high hopes. I'm almost all the time. And
wow.
So, but yeah, she went off to study, like she got a like dual degree in mathematics and computer science, and then got her MA in London in like nanomechatronics and things that I don't know what they are, PhD in material sciences.
Holy mackerel.
Like knows everything about everything, is also a better actor than me. A better writer than me, a better cook than me. Yeah, she one-ups me in every field, and I'm okay with it.
Because she loves you.
Yeah, I can just learn from her.
Yeah, that's a really cool dynamic, I gotta say, because a lot of parents will play the kids off of each other, right, and make you feel like shit. And the fact that you guys had that closeness, even though there was a little bit of rivalry, sure, but the fact that you can come to the place now where you can say, I love her and I can learn from her. I think that's, when did you come to that?
I remembered like two very pivotal moments in our lives when I just thought whatever she says is real. So whatever she says goes, I will follow her into the dark. So I'm like 7 and I say like, hey, is Santa Claus real? And she was like, no. And I was like, all right, bet. And then I was like, I get, like, I trust you. And maybe 2 years later, maybe 9 or 10. And I was like, hey, is God real? And she was like, no. And I was like, all right. So like, I just like, she was Bible to me. She was like the truth. I just like, she was my lighthouse.
That's, to have someone in your life to know would never lie to you, I think is like gold.
Fully.
That's amazing.
And, yeah. I'll still call her and just ask her, like, what is this? And she'll be like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, cool.
Does she call you for advice ever?
Dating advice. Yeah.
What's the best dating advice you ever gave her?
Always, you gotta, even if you know it's not true, you have to act like you're cooler than the other person, because then you won't like get nervous. Even if you're lying to yourself and you know this woman, this man, this person is better than me, you got to think I'm cooler. That's like the temperature at which I like gauge my life, is how cool is something or not. Okay,
and she took that advice and she's thanked you for it, I'm sure.
She tries.
Okay, I'm writing that down, Fernando, and anybody watching. There you go. Casey said it. Now, your story, my friend, is pretty fascinating, I gotta say, because the question I have now is, you're in college, becoming a lawyer, a dentist, whatever you're doing, astronaut, whatever you told your mom, and you're failing.
Miserably.
Okay, but I'm gonna fast forward and then I'm gonna come back to the middle. But at the end, you get not 1, but 2 degrees. You've got a degree, hold on. I'm gonna try to impress you with my skills of research. You got a bachelor in English language and literature. Am I right so far? And then audience, he got a second bachelor's. I was happy to get out of UCLA with 1. I was so done, but you got a second bachelor's in communication studies. Okay, that sounds pretty. Now, you said you were a super senior, so you went 5 years, yeah?
I went 5. I'm 2 credits away. One day I'll go back. I'm 2 credits away from a third bachelor's.
Damn. You are cool. You don't have to pretend. You are cool. How did this happen from someone who was, I'm just going to shows, I'm skateboarding, to, thank you, there's my 1 degree. Oh, I'll take the second one too. How did that happen?
I failed my first semester flat out the gate. I failed every single thing I took except English. I even failed I don't know. CSUN might have an equivalent, but it's like a freshman seminar class or whatever. I don't know what that's called. Does the CSUN have one where you kind of go and learn about the school and learn about study skills?
Yeah, University 101.
University 101. Ours was also called Uni. I failed that. Like, I literally failed everything. I remember I walked into Spanish class. Is maybe my first college class, and the teacher came out the gate, started talking in Spanish. I raised my hand and I said, "El baño?" And she pointed, and she said yes, and I left and never came back. I took a class called the history of science, failed. Pre-calc, failed. I failed everything but English 101. And I didn't want to move home back to my little town. I wanted to find a reason to stay in Wilmington for the summer to skate. So I told my parents, I was like, hey, I know I failed, but I will catch up by taking summer classes. So in summer classes is where I took intro to literary theory, and I took intro to creative writing, and then I took performance of literature, and I took British literature pre-1800s. Those were my 2 summer sessions, and I think that's the summer that really changed things.
You took. I'm sorry to stop you, Casey, but you thought, I'm just going to take these summer classes so I can skate more, and all of a sudden you found something, right?
Yeah.
By accident.
I don't know that I liked it, but I was good at it, and I had teachers to start believing in me. And I remember reading Talented Mr. Ripley and stuff, and writing about it, and and my teacher being like, oh, like you're figuring this out. Like I would get B's and C's on papers, and then finally she would give me an A, and she'd be like, you're like developing a voice as a writer. And I had no idea what that meant. So then I just shifted gears, and I had to call my mom and tell her that I was going to study English and not law. And she was like, oh.
Now your mom was a teacher, you said, right?
She was a teacher, so she knows. I mean, if you get a degree in English, you're either you're going to be a high school English teacher. Like that's all you know. Very few people can just take that and then become a professional writer. You're going to have to teach in some capacity if you want to eat. And so my mom knew that, and I knew that too. So I was like, all right, cool, that's fine. So I studied English and writing.
Because it was just coming your way. Now, how important was this for professors to kind of take note of you, encourage you along the way?
I didn't like the attention, but I often got it for my work. And I was like, oh, can we talk about somebody else? Can we talk about something else? Can we talk about something else? But in private, in like office hours, I would go to them and like try to like develop myself as a writer and understand these ideas and then I would ask for books that we weren't reading in class. I would be like, what else should I be reading right now?
Why didn't you like the attention?
I don't know, because all attention I sought when I was a kid, like when I was fat, was like fake. It was like to be protected from being made fun of. So then when it's like genuine organic attention, I was like, I hate this.
You know, we interviewed someone who's an actor, and he was telling us that, you know him, but I don't know if you want me to cohabitate the different episodes, Fernando. But so he said that he knew when he put on his performance self, it was comfortable to get attention. I'm kind of saying what you just said, but when it came to time to be really authentically himself, it was a lot harder. Are you feeling that this was the beginning of you becoming really who you were, not the performance guy, but actually something that was legit you?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was like, I think I wanted to be the quiet guy. You know, I wanted to be like the book guy. I was like done being boisterous, and I still had to do it for many years. I still did it. When I met Fernando, I was like this fat kid still like trying to play, because it was always in my blood to like do it, because it's like all I knew how to protect myself. But like every year I would get quieter and quieter. And now I just don't speak. This is the most I've talked in 2 years. I just would rather not talk. I would rather just listen. And I couldn't do that for about 26 years because I was like trying to not get made fun of for being a fat guy.
So like you said, and we all have them, my therapist says, we all have our defense mechanisms, right? To kind of just get us through the day. And it serves you well at some juncture in your life. And at some point it doesn't serve you as well. And so I love hearing your evolution. I think we all hope as human beings we're evolving into a more legit and more real and authentic self. So let's talk a little bit about college then. When you say, and again, this is from your LinkedIn, so this was a college course that you had to take, and you listed that you were in plays. And so you were in, Tartuffe, you were in Extra Extra, the musical, and Severe, I guess, is another show you were in. Am I right about that?
Yes, all right about this.
Okay, great. So because I know your agency is it still in North Carolina, or is your agency out here?
I'm still with her on that coast, and I tape for things over there, but I have a team over here now.
Got it. So how did you get involved then? You said you accidentally got involved with theater. How did that happen?
After my 5th year, so in my 5th year, because I was so focused on my almost 3 degrees, I was only taking like core work. So there was like some art selectives I was missing, and I had taken classes that kind of like fringed on the area of performance, like storytelling or like performance of lit or something like that, but never like an acting class. And so I was missing an art elective, and there was a class called Acting for the Camera in the theater department. I'd never taken a class in the theater department, and it was like permission only. So I went and I had to ask the teacher to get in. And I actually I buttered up the the lady working the front desk at theater, because I knew only like graduating theater seniors could get in. But I was like trying to tell her like, oh, like I need this to class to graduate, like help me out.
Did you also say, you know what, that dress looks so good on you?
It looks so good on you in this light. Like you look very beautiful right now.
How old are you? Like that?
Yeah, just like that. And so she let me in acting for the camera, and it's like the only acting training I ever got. And at the end of it, the teacher said to me, you need to meet my agent. And I said, what's that? Like, I had no idea what that was. And he was like, she gets you jobs. And I was like, all right. So I went and met her, and she didn't have a resident tack guy. You know, she needed my type. I like was a bad actor at the time, but I was a good type. You know, I fit boxes that she didn't have.
And Casey, let me pause you here. I was an actor for years and years. And for anybody who has been in theater or acting, or maybe you're thinking about it, what Casey is saying is the reality of the world. Are you the type? When I was on Days of Our Lives, I mean, they would have auditions for people. When I was on the show, I'd sit in on some of them. And so like they'd have all these actresses, right? And say out of 4 actresses, you could tell 3 of them had amazing theater training, but 1 looked the part.
Totally.
That's the person who got the part. And everyone else was just so bummed, right?
Totally.
I went to Yale. I went to Carnegie Mellon. And she came in and just looked, and she was not the best actor, but she got the gig. So back to you, friend. Here you were. You fit a category, and that's the reality of this business, right?
Yeah, I could be her bad guy, right? I could be her resident bad guy. The only problem is I had no idea what I was doing. So I took a year off I did a piercing apprenticeship so I could learn how to pierce, so I could learn how to make money. And in between, I tried to learn what acting was. She would send me self-tapes and auditions, and I would blunder my way through them for a whole year. I didn't book a single thing. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know like what being on your mark was. I like literally didn't know framing. Like I barely, I didn't know. I taken this one class. I did a couple monologues from Chasing Amy. And I was so green, but in the year I was like, okay, I'm determined to learn something about acting. So I spent the year piercing and sending in really bad audition tapes.
And did you have, how much were your headshots?
The first ever headshot session, my friend took them for free because he was trying to start a headshot business. And that is the picture on LinkedIn. That's my first ever headshot.
Because dude, you beg, borrow, and steal when you're first starting out. I did the same thing. I had a friend who took mine. I got it.
I still don't pay for headshots. I refuse to pay for headshots.
I know. It's a bummer, man. Although I've had crappy ones too, and I've paid for those. Anyway, that's another story, dear audience. But Casey, what was the first gig you booked?
Well, in that year of training, I was like, oh, maybe I should do like a play, because, you don't really have to book that. It's community theater. You sign up and say, hey, I want to, you know what I mean? Like there's still an audition, but it's like such a small pool. It was so different than the things I was taping for with this agent. So I did Tartuffe. I did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I did some like weird experimental things. But I still hadn't booked anything legit. And I even did like a short film or 2, like from the film students, but still went a whole year without any major studio booking. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this isn't for me. I don't know what I'm doing. So then I went to I was like, all right, after that year of playing around, I was like, I'm going to go to grad school.
Right. Now I have to pause you here because we're going to get to grad school, but you are in North Carolina at this point.
I am.
You come to grad school in Los Angeles.
I did.
How did that happen?
Okay. I applied to performance study. I applied to the performance studies program at Tisch at NYU. I knew I didn't want to go, but I knew I wanted the acceptance letter to like frame. So I applied and I got in and I took their free tour. They flew me up. I met professors all the while knowing I was not going to go. Because
but were you at least impressed that, wow, they're accepting me? Did that mean anything to you?
Yeah, the acceptance letter is like one of my proudest mementos, is that I got into Tisch School of the Arts. And then when I met Tim Miller in that year off, he was like, hey, you should go to CSUN. It's cheaper And if you ever decide to act, you'll be closer. And I was like, I was disheartened from this year of acting. And then the guy, my mentor guy who taught me in that audition for the camera class, he was like, where are you going? And I was like, I want to go to New York to write, but I don't want to go to grad school there. I just want to like sit at a coffee shop and be a novelist, or I want to go to LA and study. And he was like, go to LA. And I guarantee you'll like fall your way into acting, just because you're close. And I was like, nah, I'm stronger than that. And so I flipped a coin and I went to LA.
Did you really? It came down to a coin toss. Did I lose you, Casey?
Oh,
there we go.
Oh, you were frozen for a second.
Okay. Because I was just in stunned silence. No. So here you are. You come to CSUN. What did you think about? I just remember when I came here from Chicago, getting off the plane. I want to know, when you first got off the plane and you're in Los Angeles, what happened? What did that feel like to you?
Well, I had been twice before. I came to LA to get tattooed in 2014, and I really just fell in love with the city. Also, it's the skate capital of the world. It's where like it's like where skateboarding lives and breathes and moves. Like the skateboarding industry is here. So I kind of had my eye on that, and CSUN was like in the back of my head. I was like, I just want to skate at famous skate spots. The skate spots I grew up, like I didn't see a palm tree until I saw a skate video. And so that's what I had my eyes set on, like LA, not really CSUN.
Got it. And so you got to Cal State Northridge, and by now, are you feeling like you were a better student, like you knew kind of how to study better, or how did you approach grad school in a scholastic way, let's say?
Yeah, I felt like I was better because like my last year as undergrad, I got kind of serious about like writing and scholarship, but I still didn't know like a field or an area, or like I just knew like I was interested in performance studies, I was interested in literature, and I just kind of like was like, all right, well, there's going to be a professor here that hopefully like, takes me under their wing and like guides me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just like, if you leave me alone, I'll just take the classes and then leave. So I need some sort of guidance.
So you knew to be proactive in that way and get somebody to kind of mentor you through the process. Who was that?
Janine Minjay and Peter Marsden really both took me under at the same time. And I think it was good to have both of them because they come from two very different fields of thought. So I could do like the heartfelt performance work with Janine, and then I could do some like book nerd dense stuff with Dr. Marsden.
Yeah, I love both of them. And if you're a CSUN student, you've had been able to take classes with them, I think you would say the same. So then let's segue into Act 3. So here you find yourself in Los Angeles, and you had said that you were the TA for Performance Ensemble for all 4 semesters you were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? How did you get involved with Performance Ensemble? Did you know what it was, by the way? Were you aware of that kind of field from your undergrad studies?
I was, yeah. My mentor from back home is named Julianne Scott, and she is in the field. She does performance and disability work. So she kind of was like, if you get to LA, you need to study with Stacy, you need to study with Janine, blah, blah. She introduced me to Tim Miller. Tim Miller wrote my recommendation letter, which I'm pretty sure he just called. I don't think there's a physical letter. I think he's got it like that where he can just be like, yo. And I think his cosign's the only reason I got in, because when I met Janine, she was like, Tim had some nice things to say about you. And I was like, sick. And so from that, they offered me the performance TA shit.
Got it. And so when you got involved with it, you already kind of knew what to expect, or were you surprised at all? Did you have expectations and then, oh, this is the way it is?
Well, in undergrad, I was trained as a performance ethnographer because that's what Julianne did. That's like her stuff. So we did personal narrative performance and we did ethnographic performance. And I had already done some like work with interviewing and changing them to performance. So that was kind of the field. And then when I got into PE, it was a lot of that was at the forefront, as is almost all early performance studies work is like personal narrative. And so as I got into it in my years, me and Janine together tried to shift more towards experimental work. I was like getting very deeply uninterested in personal narrative, and I wanted to do other things, and I think she did too. So we got a little weird with some of our shows, but you know, you see in any, I mean, the fact that performance of lit is still like the first introductory class in almost every performance studies undergrad, that's where you're going to go first, is personal narrative. But by my fourth semester there, we were like doing weird shit.
Okay, so I want to compare the two phases of your career there. The beginning, you had mentioned that you were always carrying around another 100 pounds. In fact, you said that when you knew Fernando, you were still heavy. Was when you say a narrative and incorporating your personal narrative in your work, did that kind of become the theme of, say, your first semester at Northridge? Were you incorporating the perspective of, okay, well, I'm a heavier dude, and this is maybe some things that audience, you don't know about my life. Was there anything like that going on?
No, I think I hated it so much about myself that I never talked about it. All my performance work was about being brown. All my performance work was about my sister and her transition. And all my performance work was about the trouble I got in with women.
What kind of trouble did you get into, Casey? Hey, this is all, you've already performed it.
Yeah, I did a show. I did a thing, where I had like a revolving circle of women, and I would pull them out, and we would do the breakup scene from Good Will Hunting, and then they would go back in the circle, and it just got more dizzying. And it was just about like the performativity of romantic love, and like my ideas of like, is love real, or is this really happening, or are we just in an act, like a weird meta acting class? Like I was just really questioning romantic and sexual love at the time, and that would often get me in trouble with women.
And you know what I love about that is not that you got in trouble, but that there is this sense, as I mentioned earlier, when you are authentic and vulnerable and willing to go there, you are speaking for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like you're giving voice to these private sensibilities that we all have. And in that particular case, I would say you were speaking from experiences that both guys and girls had, right? So if you're a woman, you're looking at that going, oh, that's interesting. That's how it might seem to the guy. And for guys, they can say, I totally can relate to that. Did you feel that when you put your story, because you're a storyteller, I'm going to keep coming back to that, you're a storyteller. When you put that piece together, did you have your audience in mind, or was your number one priority, I just got to be honest with how I'm feeling?
I mean, I think theatrically, in terms of blocking and things, you keep the audience in the foreground. In terms of content, I was just trying to like write something that would be somewhat moving.
And how often or how much did you write? Not just the stuff that you did in PE, but how much did you write? And I'm not talking about school work either for Mr. Marston, Professor Marston, but like just writing in general. It sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you are a writer. You like to write. You envisioned yourself in New York in this cafe, you know, maybe with a beret. No, maybe not with a beret, but anyways, just being a writer, right? How often were you writing, let's say, just for yourself, an expression just for your feelings while you were in grad school? Did you have time for that?
No, I'd like to fancy myself like an idealistic New York City cafe novelist, but I fully was not. Like I just thought about writing so much more than I wrote. Like I had a stack of personal essays to be written. I had a stack of performance pieces to be written. I had all these great ideas for novels to be written. And I really focused my time on thinking about writing more than writing. I think I was the only person in my graduating class to write a thesis and not do comps. So that's like the most writing I did probably in those 2 years.
So dude, you can still be a doctor. You can still make your mom proud and say, look, Mom, I got my doctorate. It's just in communications or whatever. Could be. Hey, so the 4 semesters that you were there, now you had said you started off in one direction, which was, a little more ethnography. And then you said you got weird. What does that mean?
I got I wanted to veer away from when I think of a performance studies undergraduate classroom, I think of people sitting on a black box, light shines on them, they stand up, walk forward, they tell a story with their arms a lot about their life, and they end on a picturesque note. And after seeing that over and over again, I got so nauseated. I was I want to do pieces where we don't talk. I want to do pieces where we spit in each other's mouth. I want to we did a show. Were you in Hollywood Bound, Fernando? We did a crazy show where we glued TVs together, and there was a whole interlude scene where everyone in the cast just came out and swept the stage. There was a Barbie fight where I wanted to do everything that wasn't, I'm going to stand in the spotlight in a black turtleneck and tell you how hard it was growing up. Because it's hard. Everyone is hard growing up. Dads leave. That's the thing that happens. So I wanted to move away from that. So by the time I had a companion performance with my thesis, I wanted no personal narrative at all. I wanted to not talk about me at all. So I adapted a book to the stage, which is really going backwards in terms of performance studies. Oral interpretation of lit is it's like blacksmithing. It's like a dead trade. But I told my thesis team, I was I want to do this. I know nobody does it anymore, but I want to adapt a book to a one-person show because I refuse to do personal narrative. And they're like, okay.
I love it. And what's interesting too, I remember, Casey, when I was in music school, they said you got to learn the basics so that you can then branch out and break all the rules. And it sounds like you knew all the rules, you broke them, and then you broke them so much you were able to go back to blacksmithing and make something new out of that. I just find that to be really fascinating. Now, Fernando, you said you were in that show. That's where the two of you met, right? Did you see any other performance ensemble shows that Casey was doing before you were involved in it?
No, I didn't even know it existed. So I just I showed up, and and that's probably the reason why I was so quiet too. It was really weird. Yeah, I guess I walked into the weirdest part of PE then. That's when we were changing things. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I just felt so lost in it. I had no idea what I was doing, man.
Well, wait. So you're telling me you were quieter than Casey?
That's the thing.
You out-quieted Casey.
He was not quiet. It's or maybe he was. I don't know. It's it's that thing that Casey, you were saying, that you would sort of put up this front because you were trying to have people not pay attention to your body or whatever. But when I met you, the only thing I did notice was just the personality, and I was like, this guy's cool. But yeah, I guess he didn't really say much. It's just he looked loud, if that makes sense. You seem loud.
I was so loud. I was so loud as a shield.
Yeah, you this guy that's just I think he had a buzz cut or something.
I had a shaved head, yeah.
Yeah.
That's badass.
He's going up and short, this person seems loud. He just, But yeah, I don't know if he was quieter. Now I just know that I was definitely quiet.
You definitely out-quieted me. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Now, for Casey, were you teaching at this as well? Were TAing, and then did you also teach beginning speech and stuff?
I did. I weaseled my way into this too. My chair was Catherine Sorrell's, the greatest chair that I've ever, got to be with. She was the best. She let me do whatever I wanted. She was so sweet. She supported me for, my 2 years and then onward. The first time I ever met her, we went into her office to try to find funding for a PE show. And everyone's seats were taken. So I laid on her desk, full French girl Titanic. It was the first time I ever met her. And Janine, I think, was mortified at the time, but then I could go to Catherine and ask her for anything. And so I went to her and I was like, hey, I'm TAing performance ensemble. And then the other thing, my other class, obviously every other TA, is 151, but instead, can I teach 104? which was it's literature and performance, because my justification was that speech and debate grad students can teach argumentation. I want to teach in my field. So she was like, nobody's ever asked for 104. So then I was the only TA ever to do 104 and PE. So I only taught like one section of public speaking, and then I was done.
Got it. And you know what I love about that is that, Casey, it seems like you're somebody who is like, I'll try it, and why can't I do that? And I think so many people miss out on so many, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So many people miss out on opportunities because they don't think to ask.
Well, yeah.
Wow, so way cool. Now, so as a teacher and as a TA, was it satisfying for you to be able to bring someone else's work to fruition?
Yeah, I don't love teaching speech. And now it's gotten to the point where I've taught speech so many times that now I just teach it like a performance studies class. So we do all the weird fun stuff, but I really enjoy teaching performance a lit. I also teach narrative and performance. So I really like that work.
See, that's beautiful. All right, so now we're going to call this a little bit of an epilogue, okay? And then we're going to come back to the big three, which is the joke, the quote, and the music. But right now, since you graduated in 2017, so like 3 years ago, right?
Yes, sir.
Now I'm just going to look on your IMDb, not trying to embarrass you, but I'm just trying to show people who are, let's say, recent grads, or if you're still an undergrad or a grad student even. I think most people are thinking, okay, what the hell do I do now, right? Your world has been all about class. It's been all about writing your thesis or whatever. And now you're out in the cultural world. And so you've been able to do a couple of, well, more than a couple. I'm not going to read them all. But like you booked the Nashville gig, right? Ozark, and this film that you did your buttering up, and you got Fernando to kick in some money for take two. So how did those things kind of start happening for you once you got out of grad school?
Well, just like my year of non-booking in North Carolina, my year off, I kept that same agent. And I was like, hey, I'm going to grad school, but please still send me tapes. And she did for 2 years, and I still didn't book anything. I was not working. And I had like a deep process to myself where I had to think why am I not booking? Am I a bad actor? Well, yeah. But you see archetypes on TV, right? And there's like the funny fat guy. There's like Jonah Hill and Seth Rogen and all like the chubby funny guys that it's like part of their bit. But then there's like the tat guys or like the bad guys, but you don't see chubby tat guys. Like I was like stuck in two opposing types, and I was like, I'm never going to work as like the funny fat guy because I have tats on my neck. I'm never going to work as like drug dealer number 2 because I'm chubby and I have a dimple and I have a Southern accent. So I was like, I have to do something about it. And so that summer, I got offered 4 classes, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to just teach full time, if this acting thing's not going to work out. And I was binge watching the show Entourage. I don't know if either of you have seen Entourage.
Of course. Great
show.
But
by season 8, Turtle gets really skinny. The character of Turtle gets really skinny.
Jonah Hill gets really skinny.
Yeah. And me and my friend are binge watching Entourage together, and I'll never forget this. We were hiking somewhere, and it was like June or May. I just graduated, and I was telling him like, yo, I didn't book any acting stuff, so like maybe I'll just teach full time. Maybe I'll get a PhD in a year. And he straight up said to me, why don't you just turtle it? And he was like, just get really skinny. And I was like, okay. And so I started running like immediately the next day, like changed my life by saying that to me. I started running, I started doing yoga, and I dropped 100 pounds. And then by September, it was the first audition I had in a slim body, was for a show called Smilf on Showtime. And I booked it. and I shot as my first professional television gig. I was newly skinny, like literally the first time I'd walked into an audition room skinny. I got the job. And then the next job was like 5 days later, I booked Nashville, and my agent called and she was like, hey, you're getting half the season. They're giving you 8 episodes out of 16. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm working now because I'm skinny.
Right.
And then I got a big Spotify campaign that paid my bills, have been paying my bills for like 2 years. And so, yeah, I just like started working as soon as I got small. It's so weird. It's so bizarre. I had to scale back. I never taught those 4 classes. I went back to 2, and some semesters I would teach 1. I would be like flying to Nashville, working, coming home, teaching my Tuesday night section, going back to Nashville. And Catherine was so good. I'd be like, hey, I'm on a show. I need 1 class only. Hey, the show's wrapped. I need 2 classes. So I never went back to full-time teaching, and just have been able both to support myself, acting and teaching at least 1 section.
And the fact that you were able to look at your life and say, okay, I'm going to say, and you could say this as accidentally, you were looking at the way the business works, and you're saying, okay, I can't be the fat, tat, funny guy. There's no jobs for that, or whatever. And then you found, just by a random comment that a friend just made to you, and a light bulb went off. And now here you are living your life. And you know what? I'm going to say that it seems, and this is for our audience too, tell me if you agree with this, that you're going along with the adventure as it manifests itself. It could be acting for 20 years. It could be acting for 10 or 5, and then you'll keep doing what you do. You have creativity in you, right? And it's going to manifest itself, whether it's acting or writing or whatever. So Take Two, let me get to that project. Did you write that project?
I did.
Yeah, and you're starring in it, and did you direct it too or no?
Didn't. I just wrote it.
You didn't want to do the Clint Eastwood. You thought, okay, I've got to get someone else to direct. That's a hard gig, right?
No, no actors can direct themselves. You think about,
I don't think so.
Like, everyone tries and everyone fails. Like, Ben Affleck is so bad at it. Like, all these people are so bad at it. Like, maybe John Cassavetes can direct himself and act, but he's also John Cassavetes, you know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. I just want to act. Like, I wrote this thing. It's a story. It's a story that birthed out of a PE show. My PE show with spinning women was called Take Two. And I took it from PE, then I took a graduate playwriting course and I turned it into a 1-act play, and then I turned it into a screenplay. So it's had like 3 incarnations. It's the first thing I ever wrote for the screen, and I made it.
And it's just completely organically coming from within you, so it's completely authentically you. I think that you can't ask for anything more than that. I love the journey that piece has taken. So what would you tell someone, let's say someone's an undergrad watching this and they're thinking, well, I've been hearing about this PE thing, but I'm kind of nervous about it. I don't know anything about it. What would you say to encourage someone, actually it could be a grad student too, to encourage someone to give it a try? What do you think would need to be said to someone who's maybe on the fence about that?
I think it's like one of the few places in our department where you can be like wrong and bad and make bad choices and yeah, put up bad work, because then you just learn and change it, right? You can't have success in a rhetoric class if you continue to put up like shoddy work. But if you just keep trying in PE, there'll be something beautiful that comes out of it, right? It's like I don't like the term safe. It's I don't know, it's less like relentless than like a traditional like desk in the classroom, because you can spin a circle of women around and see what comes out. You can, tie Barbies together into a big sword. I don't know that works in other classrooms, though I tried. I had some weird times trying to find my way in the traditional grad studies class that I turned in blocks of wood instead of papers a couple times.
I didn't know that was even an option. And now, if you're watching this, that's an option. Give it a try. Well, I'll tell you what, man, this has been so fun. So before we let you go, we have what we call the big 3. All right. And so Fernando's probably told you about this. So we always like to hear what's something that you just find funny, like a joke that you can tell. Is there a quote that just means something to you? And is there a song, it could be a piece of music or anything, and maybe we can even expand that to 3 choices in the music department because I'm a musician. I will allow that. Just to kind of give us a glimpse into your inner world. So what's like a favorite joke or something that you just think is super funny?
Can we do joke at the end?
Yes.
I still don't have one.
That's fine. And we can pass on that. Do you have a favorite quote or just something that you go, man, that just resonates with me, and I love to drop that quote with any chance I get?
Yeah, my favorite director is a director named Harmony Korine. He's famous for like writing kids when he was 19, and he made the best American film of all time called Gummo. But he said, I was free when I was 12 because I got my first skateboard, and I've been free ever since. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I bet.
That speaks volumes, especially what we now know about you. I get that. Now, music, I'm sure, plays a part in your life. What song, or maybe up to 3 pieces of music or songs, just really means something to you?
I think Mama Tried by Merle Haggard. It's like the greatest song ever written.
This is from a guy who loved Eminem, but you're going back to Merle Haggard. I love that. That's very eclectic of you, sir. Nicely done.
I got it tattooed on the back of my neck. The back of my neck.
Do you really?
It says Mama Tried on the back of my neck.
Why that song? What about that song resonates with you?
I mean, it's just about like, going back to the, what did we call it? The first act. Like I grew up, Merle Haggard's talking about growing up and becoming a criminal, even though his mom tried, but like, I wasn't like a full scale, like bank robber, but my mom always tried to lead me down like the right path. And, I somewhat listened to her, but a lot of the times I didn't, but she really tried.
She tried, and I think at the end, she's probably, I'm going to guess, both your dad and your mom are happy that you are who you are. Ultimately, do you agree? Is that how they feel?
They still take my phone calls and they watch me on TV. So I think,
well
I'm
done.
doing all right.
Well done, my friend. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us in this latest installment of CSUN Performance Ensemble Presents a Conversation with, and our special guest has been Mr. Casey Mills. My name is Jefferson Denim.
My name is Fernando, and really quick, Casey still owes me a tattoo on the body with my name on it. So
I did. Fernando is the biggest supporter of my film, the biggest single donor of my film, and I promised him I would get his name tattooed on me. And I will.
All right, and we expect to show that tattoo in the credits, can we? Just the tattoo.
Of course.
All right, great. So we want to leave you with this quote. This is from Irving Wallace, and he said, "To be one's self and unafraid whether right or wrong is more admirable than the easy cowardice of surrender to conformity." So be who you are authentically. That's what the world desperately needs. We're so glad that you tuned in be with us so that you could be with us today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.
Awesome.